Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. Be quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. You'll love that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentary.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good mic work. Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cells.
And now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power.
Listen to the podcast, subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good mic work commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're gonna have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy Saturday, boys and girls. What is going on? Good Mic Work Commentaries back at you. Welcome to your Winged Eagle podcast for February 26th, 2022. We have got a loaded, jam-packed episode this week. Most of this podcast, I think, is going to be discussion-heavy because a lot of what we're going to focus on here today is on kind of notes, and tidbits, but most importantly, a lot of the information that we've gotten recently in regards to WrestleMania, what we are likely to see there, and what went down on SmackDown last night with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, and WWE basically confirming that the title winner-take-all match at WrestleMania is, in fact, a unification. I felt like there was a lot of confusion with that during the week. A lot of fans weren't sure if it was title for title or winner-take-all or a unification. or what they're doing, and apparently it seems like it's confirmed from what we can tell. They are going to merge the two world titles, and this just leaves a whole bunch of shit to digest. So we're really going to unpack that, look at the pros, which I think there are a lot of pros to a unification, but also look at some of the cons. And if they're unifying the men's, that means they better unify the women's, because it makes zero sense to have two women's champions and only one WWE, unless they plan on making a B champion, kind of like they have been doing with the men's titles. Otherwise, I think a women's IC or some sort of secondary belt needs to be created so they do have another singles title to go after, but that would be silly to have two women's world champions and one men's, considering how small and thin the women's roster can be, especially when you split it up across two brands. So we're going to talk about WrestleMania, the implications of the main event, the Roman and Brock match just in general. I found myself in a Twitter rabbit hole of stupid today because I made the mistake of pointing out last night on Twitter that many, countless, well over a dozen, even more WrestleMania main event matches have happened before, have been rematches. And of course, this sparked a lot of anger, because who can think about a war when Greg is out here saying he's not mad about the Brock and Roman match? Holy shit, let's lose our shit about that, because that's important. But I was basically trying to point out that we've had many matches that have main evented the big show that we've seen before. We saw Hogan and Andre a bunch of times. Well, they don't acknowledge it. And I'm like, well, cool thing about being a wrestling fan is you remember it whether WWE acknowledges it or not. So I was trying to kind of point that out, because that is the biggest complaint I see with Brock and Roman. We've seen it before. Yeah, no shit. But I would much prefer these two versions of Brock and Roman than the ones we got 3 or 4 years ago. So at least we have that. I'm kind of a silver lining guy is all I was trying to do. But are you not allowed to have any positive opinion whatsoever about WWE? I've spent the better part of a decade taking a big, steaming, juicy shit right on top of their heads, and then you insinuate that one match doesn't make you mad, and you're like an apologist and a fanboy. Get the fuck out of here. So we'll talk a little bit about that and that nightmare I dealt with, because I woke up to over 1,000 likes on that tweet, and of course, people are all up in arms about it. Go figure. That's kind of in wrestling Twitter's DNA. But among the Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, WrestleMania, title unification stuff, we're also going to be getting into Cesaro's departure from the company. Also, Brian Cage sticking with the company. We're going to discuss the latest on Cody Rhodes. Fightful Select had an article up on this yesterday that we'll look into, see if we can get any more clues as to where Cody might be landing. Also, Tony Khan is hyping up some mega announcement for this Wednesday. Now, I thought he was supposed to give us some announcement this past Wednesday, but he did not. Now he's saying some major historic happening is going to go down on Wednesday. It's not a specific talent, according to TK. It has something to do about pro wrestling in general. So this sounds like maybe another working agreement. Maybe he's purchased Ring of Honor. Maybe there's another New Japan door being kicked in. Perhaps Cody Rhodes is coming back. I believe WWE and Dynamite have back-to-back shows in Jacksonville coming up. So that makes the whole Cody dynamic even more interesting. And of course, our friend Tammy Sitch, a.k.a. Sunny, arrested again. How many times have I said this now? We're into the dozens of times that she has been arrested. I believe it was less than 1 month ago, perhaps maybe a little bit more than 1 month ago. She was arrested for some of the same shit she was arrested for on Thursday, and it's a long list of charges. And how this woman has avoided permanent jail time is beyond me. The last time she got in trouble a month ago, I went on a little bit of a rant where I said there's really no fixing her unless she's in jail for a decade plus. I think that's really the only way at this point to get her clean, is just to lock her away for many, many, many years. Hope she can come out as an old lady and live the rest of her life in peace. Otherwise, to let her be in charge of her own, well-being, it ain't going to go well, and she simply cannot stay out of jail. So her theme song in WWE, I Know You Want Me, I never knew she was talking about jail. So you learn something new every day. Way to go, Jim Johnson. He knew what he was doing. Other than that, we're going to talk about last night's SmackDown. Like I said, we're not going to spend too much time on the results, although there were a couple of interesting segments and matches and some WrestleMania match seeds being planted there on SmackDown. Rampage last night was pretty fun. Pretty good TNT title match took place, and the Britt and Thunder Rosa contract signing was a lot of fun. Maybe not as fun as Brock and Roman's, but Britt did a fantastic job in that. We might touch a little bit on this past week's Dynamite. We were up doing a watch-along for that, and we watched the entire CM Punk and MJF feud take a very interesting turn. So we might look at that a little bit and discuss Buddy Matthews. We'll run through some of the ratings. And in terms of Monday Night Raw, probably not going to talk anything about that. We were up here on Monday reviewing it, so if you want to hear my thoughts on Raw, it's back on my page from Monday, but I'm sure we will talk about Kevin Owens and Steve Austin possibly wrestling at WrestleMania. Sounds like it's a go, and my instinct tells me that it's going to happen. So Owens continues to shit on Texas every chance he gets, and I think it's all but a done deal that we are going to get that. But before we really get cooking, let me say hi to the chat. Let me shout out the patrons, and then we're going to get into the news because I don't have a ton of time to talk today because I got to go to work, and it's kind of a tight day for me. But I'll be getting into my schedule for the week as well and that sort of thing. But first things first, I can be heard, correct? Yep. All right, there I am. Michael Cuomo, hello, good to see you. Along with Rodrigo, Tatanani, Victor, Reese Jones just sent you a DM on the Twitter. Reese is sponsoring a WrestleMania video for next month that I'm in the process of working on, although because of the situation with my cat, I'm not as far along on it as I would like to be. But it's going to be a fun WrestleMania-related video in March. Good to see Financial Truth, Andy, Chaz, Red Raven, David, Hosea, good to see you. Regina, ACGT. We got Randy. We got Roderick. We got Naveed, Jet the Hawk. We have Denny, Shellshock, Ben, Mike, everything, Sir Wilson, Isaac, Isaiah, Kickass. If you can do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button if you are in here. If you're new, please subscribe. We're up here for the most part when I don't have any other pet drama going on. We're here every Wednesday for watch-alongs, mostly every Saturday for Winged Eagle podcasts, and mostly every Sunday for classic pay-per-view watch-alongs. Unfortunately, there will be no watch-along tomorrow. A little bit just too much going on right now, but I plan on doing the WrestleMania watch-alongs all through the month of March. So we will kick that off a week from tomorrow, but unfortunately tomorrow there will not be a watch-along. And as a matter of fact, there won't be one the week after that either because it's Revolution. I might have to squeeze in a watch-along another night of the week. I plan to do a lot of WrestleManias through February and March, but situations here at home have kind of made that a little difficult. So no watch-along tomorrow. And probably no Raw review on Monday unless something crazy happens. I'll maybe come up on Tuesday for a small news brief video, and of course we'll be here Wednesday for the watch-along, that sort of thing. So again, because of the situation going on, I'm not quite sure the absolute schedule for my videos because those of you who've been following along at home, I got a sick, terminally ill cat who's been with me for 12 years, and I was all set to do the deed, and then he kind of turned the corner at the beginning of the week. Probably because of the steroids. He's all roided up, and he's been feeling great, kind of back to his old self. He's been eating. He's been running. None of this stuff was possible before, so I'm just watching him. He's on all the possible medication. They've assured me there's no coming back from it, but it could make him feel better for a little while. So until he starts declining, we're going to just keep an eye on him, but once he does, I know that'll be ball game because there's really no coming back from what he's got. So we'll keep our eye on that in terms of, what it means for the channel and videos and stuff. But once all of that starts to happen, you be prepared to not see me for a good week. You know what I mean? But thank you to everybody for all your well wishes throughout the past week or so. All the DMs, all the emails, all the nice tweets that I've received. I appreciate it. Everybody can relate to what I'm going through, and it sucks. So I'll keep you posted on that on social media and over here on the YouTube. So keep that in mind. All of my friends and current subscribers on the Patreon page, I want to say thank you to all of you. Starting with, we have MJ Parker and Kaylin Scott, Divine Ricks, JJ Legg, Darren Piper, Nikita Abalakin, Chris Miner, Super Fluffy Toaster, Deshaun Robinson, J Smooth 99, Martin Can, Apron Bump Podcast, Alan Carter, Nick Musser, Jimmy Anderson, K Dogs Kennel, Ryan Y, Devlin Husband, John Redifer, Claudio Clavadetster, Reese Jones, Barry MK, Josiah Blevins, John Riffle, Michael Kumo, Naveed, Keith Salyers, and Blake Moran. As always, dudes, thank you for all your support over there on the Patreon page. If you would like to support the channel, you can click the link in the description below, take you right over there, and, just donate $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month, whatever you can spare, and I'd appreciate it. That should do it for the pleasantries. We've got stuff to talk about. C-Mac, thank you very much for that $2. What's going on? Good to see you. Thanks for being here as always. And we're ready to rock here on the news. So the order that I have my news in, I was trying to space it out so we don't have to get into too much gnarly shit right off the bat. So why don't we start with comings and goings? And we're going to start with the going. It was reported middle of the week this week that Cesaro is quietly departed WWE because his contract expired. Now, most of us were under the impression that he re-signed because we heard that story about a year ago, and I suppose it turns out that what he signed was a one-year extension. And during this past year, he's seen names like Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, AJ Styles all re-signed for big money, and I believe it was Meltzer this week that originally kind of reported that it was basically the offer that they made him that he wasn't too happy about, basically. So he decided to leave the company. Now, this is great for a lot of reasons. Number one, it gives him no non-compete. And number two, I think everybody, most fans, unanimously believe that he is probably the most criminally underused guy in all of WWE. He's had a couple of glimmers. A couple of his pushes that he's had have lasted less time than an episode of Friends, but they... because they just don't follow through. And I remember back in 2014 when he picked up the Big Show and body slammed him over the top rope at that inaugural Andre Battle Royal. I'm like, this guy is going to be a huge star. WWE made sure I was wrong. They made damn sure I was wrong. And he has always been more than capable. Do I think Cesaro is the next Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Roman Reigns, John Cena? Hell no. But he could have been the next Eddie. He could have been the next Benoit, for sure. Those guys aren't the big megastars, but they're the workhorses that fans respect that can definitely be given world title runs from time to time. And I don't see any reason why Cesaro couldn't have been in that category. He doesn't have the charisma, of guys like Hogan and Austin and Rock, but neither did Benoit, and neither did a lot of guys who have worn world championship gold. So I think the world is going to see Claudio Castagnoli re-debut in pro wrestling and could even reunite with the Kings of Wrestling in AEW. And when you think about what Danielson and Mox, or what Danielson's trying to do, at least in storyline and kayfabe in AEW, holy shit, bring in Claudio like ASAP. Now, I'm not going to say what anybody should do with their lives or their careers or where they should go. And I'm certainly not saying AEW should scoop up every single person that leaves WWE, but there are some free agents that are simply too good to pass up, and there's been a lot of those guys. Keith Lee is one of those guys. Andrade is one of those guys. You think about certain pieces of talent out there without a contract, why wouldn't you sign them up? So unfortunately, every time somebody leaves WWE, because AEW is only a 2.5-year-old company and they haven't had enough time for contracts to expire yet, it's been mostly going one way, which means the fans, because thinking is hard, automatically start saying shit like AEW only signs WWE cast-offs and stuff. The best wrestlers in the world are going to work for the top companies in the world. Can we at least agree on that? So by that logic, that means, light bulb, that's where all the best free agents are going to come from. The best, most valuable free agents in the wrestling world are likely, not all the time, but I'd say 99% of the time, going to come from your top two companies because they have the name recognition, they have the exposure, they have the reputation, they have the experience. Everybody knows who they are. So if you're trying to build a wrestling company, one of the top ones in the world, naturally you're going to want some star power on that roster, along with trying to build and grow your foundation, your pillars, and make some stars of your own. And this will take time. And as you see years go by, when AEW becomes a little bit older, they too will have contracts expire. We've already kind of seen that happen a little bit with Cody Rhodes. We saw Big Swole take off. Brian Cage was rumored to head off to greener pastures, so to speak, until he stuck around for his year option. So you're going to see more of that as time goes by, but fans just have no patience or concept of time at all. So they think it's weird that, all these signings are ex-WWE guys. I'm like, well, what do you expect? You can't have anybody leaving the company when the company's brand new. So it takes time. There will be people leaving AEW and going to the other side. And as somebody that lived through the Monday Night Wars and the WCW and WWE war and the NWA and WWF war, take it from me, They bounce back and forth all the times. Rosters switch and trade like crazy. Look at WWE and WCW's rosters in 1996. They are fucking reversed. The Vaders, the Foleys, the Dustins, the Austins, the Pillmans, they were all in WWE. The Hogans, the Savages, the Razors, the Diesels, they were all in WCW. It just switches. It's the way it goes. It's the natural flow of wrestling. But fans who were in their dad's balls during the Ruthless Aggression era don't understand this. So they constantly harp out the same shit. And I'm like, if you're too blind to see that Cesaro is not a valuable person, and you personally, you as a fan, would not sign Cesaro because he's from WWE, that's an unimaginably stupid way to think. And I think Cesaro can bring great value. Like I said, he's not going to come in and be the next Roman or Cena anywhere, but he's definitely worth more than WWE gave him. And I think he would have been offered a better contract from WWE if they had utilized him better and made him more valuable, or at least helped him along. They are so guilty of always starting and stopping shit. Whenever they've decided they've cared about Cesaro for a minute, they literally forget about it when their coffee is gone. It's like, oh, on to the next thing. So, luckily for Cesaro, he realized that. I think a lot of fans were low-key disappointed when they heard that he re-signed a year ago, because we already thought that he was criminally underused. They gave him that pay-per-view match against Roman, right, which was very good. Where was that? Payback or something? It was in the Thunderdome days. And they kind of gave him a chance, but they're giving him a push, like a world title push, with no fans in the fucking building. I think one of Cesaro's biggest strengths and his biggest chances to get over is to have us, the fans, behind him and vocal for him at shows. And when he's performing in front of video screens, then all you have is social media and Twitter, for fans to clamor for him. And we all know how annoying that can be. I can attest to that just from what I went through today. So I am really excited to see where he goes. He might want to play around a little bit first, bounce around, go win some championship gold and Impact or whatever. But, at the end of the day, him coming into AEW seems great to me. So wherever Cesaro goes, we wish him the best. He's 41 years old. He's still got gas in the tank. He's in incredible shape, and I think he can offer a lot still, and it ain't too late for him. So best of luck to Cesaro. We wish him the best. He's awesome. Brian Cage is another guy that's been in the news a lot because he's been absent from AEW TV for quite some time, and even his wife has expressed some frustration in the past in regards to how Cage is handled, booked, whatever, in AEW. So there's been a lot of talk that when he leaves, he could head over to WWE. Now, I had heard some story that there was some animosity or heat with him in WWE. I don't remember what that story is, but when you look at Brian Cage, we've talked about this recently with Wardlow and Jade Cargill. These are some pieces of talent in AEW that to me seem much more like WWE's type of guy. These big, just huge muscle guys. I can see Vince jizzing in his shorts when he gets a look at Brian Cage. Same thing with Jade Cargill. Same thing with Wardlow. They look like WWE talent. They look like the type of people WWE pursues or scouts. And so a lot of people thought that, Brian Cage could go there and probably be used as more, with a lot more exposure than he was in AEW. But it was reported that he has re-signed with AEW, or at least had his 1-year option picked up, which means he'll be there for another year. So this was according to Fightful as of yesterday. In an update on the Brian Cage contract situation, we confirmed with sources within AEW that Cage's option year on his contract was picked up. We noted on Wednesday that he'd told several in the company that it happened. We're told that his deal would have expired on February 21st, which was just a few days ago, but the option was exercised a couple of days before that. Cage hasn't been on AEW TV in months, and we did hear from a source within one other company that confirmed there would have been interest if he was made available. So that implies WWE. Those that we've reached out to say that Cage hasn't been backstage at AEW in months, but was there for several weeks after he stopped being used on television. And Cage's deal is now set to expire in February 2023. So they are, this is an interesting situation because Cage not only has not been used on TV, he hasn't even been at the building. So it is possible here. It is possible that this could be AEW or Tony Khan's way of keeping Cage around for another year before he heads off to WWE. I feel like if Cage left now, it would be the same thing that WWE probably deals with. If he left now and went and signed with WWE and then went and did a podcast or something, he might have some unsavory things to say about how his situation was handled or how they seemed to give a shit about him and then all of a sudden not. He's a part of Team Taz and they kind of boot him out of it and then just forget that he's there. I get it. It is going to be hard for AEW as your roster grows. I do not believe for a second that AEW's roster is bloated. It's a term that's tossed around way too easily around the wrestling world. I don't think it's bloated per se, but their talent roster is going to grow and you're going to see some of the fat trimmed every now and then. And I think Brian Cage is not a guy that you should just be casting aside or letting go to another company. I do believe he has value, and maybe they want to give it another whirl with him. Try to figure out, okay, what did we do last time that wasn't clicking, wasn't connecting? How can we improve on that? Let's try to do something for this guy so he can have a good year to where he wants to stay here 1 year from now when his contract is up. But if they do largely the same thing with him all through 2022 that they did in 2021, then that's going to be kind of shitty. That's going to come across like they kept him around just to keep him away from WWE. And that's something that we're used to WWE doing because they don't give a fuck about pettiness. We expect better sometimes from AEW. So we'll see. We wish Cage the best. I got nothing against Cage. I like him. He's a freaking beast. I mean, he's not, I wouldn't say he's quite as strong as me, but almost. I mean, if he works out a little bit more, he might be able to, balloon up to Greg's size, but he's still in magnificent shape. And it's probably smart to want to keep a guy like that around. So if they bring him to TV again, if they start using him, which they should, he shouldn't resign if they're not going to use him, then do it right, and try to figure out something for him. And who knows, maybe they'll surprise us. So those are our comings and goings. I want to get into since we're kind of on that subject and we're on the subject of AEW and Brian Cage, let's talk about Cody real quick. And I want to shout out Fightful Select again. They released an article yesterday that gave us an update on the latest of Cody the latest on Cody, because since this whole story broke of him leaving AEW, possibly going back to WWE, we were all watching Raw on Monday thinking it was a very real possibility he could show up. WWE's been teasing the hell out of it. WWE themselves teased it in multiple tweets. The Miz teased it and Edge teased it when he had his promo talking about the Mania opponent that he's seeking out. Now we know, we're not idiots. We know the Mania opponent is going to be AJ, but he did mention, a little Cody tease there. So WWE seems to be playing into this rumor, and that's why I've always been adamant that it's not a work. I believe that it could potentially become one, especially if Cody goes back to AEW. Who knows what he could do, with this. But in terms of this whole situation being a work, no. If it was a work, do you know what that means? You people out there that think this is a work, do you understand the gravity of that? If it is a work, guess what? That means there's a working agreement between WWE and AEW because they are both pushing this rumor. Maybe they're just having fun. I don't know. But to me, the way we know WWE and the way we know them to be, the last fucking thing in the world they are going to do is help participate in some AEW angle. No. So if they are, that means there must be some cooperation there, and we might see AEW influence at WrestleMania or appearances or something like that. To be honest with you, I don't want that. Back in the day, we always dreamed of a WWE and WCW supercard. That would have been great, but I don't think I'm ready to see it yet. AEW is only 2 years old. Let them be around for 10 years, 12 years, to where maybe they're a little bit more closer to WWE's level and there's really maybe an intense competition. That's the time to do it, not now. And WWE, I just don't think would be into that. So I firmly believe that Cody left AEW and is fielding offers from other companies and can very well turn up in WWE. And based on the news we heard last night, with Vince McMahon appearing on the Pat McAfee show this coming Thursday, that could be a good place for Cody too. But before we get to that, let me read you this article from Fightful just so we can see if there's any information in here. Latest on Cody. Those in WWE are very specific to say, quote, if Cody comes in and if Cody comes out. Or if Cody Rhodes this, if Cody Rhodes that, basically. Let me reread that. If Cody Rhodes comes in and, quote, if Cody Rhodes pops up, and we haven't heard anyone speaking of plans creatively for him as of yet. That doesn't mean there aren't any, but we haven't heard of them. Last we heard, he wasn't listed on the script for SmackDown tonight, so this was yesterday. Those obviously change. Wrestlers in WWE still believe he's coming in, but have not been given any indication from any official standpoint that that is going to happen. In AEW, those we spoke to last week and and this week stated that things were, quote, business as usual, and the subject wasn't discussed nearly as much over a quiet week. One source indicated they believe Tony Khan and Cody Rhodes are still on friendly terms and don't expect any unsavory comments or reflections to be put forth by either man. Sources in AEW spoke to said that the particulars had been kept pretty private. When we reached out to Cody last week, only comment we received was that he's a, quote, stay-at-home dad now. Yeah, right. Those close to him insisted that he was in Orlando to visit friends for a birthday dinner as opposed to the rumors of him heading to the Performance Center. We've not been able to independently confirm either. So I think fans are probably going to see Cody when he's somewhere. It's hard to miss that fucking neck tattoo. So if he turns up in an airport or something or anywhere near anything WWE related, I think the cat is going to be out of the bag. I do find it interesting that they're kind of just letting the fans wait. I've expressed my opinion on this. I've always felt that if you find yourself as a performer in the unique position of not having a no-compete clause, then I say you appear on TV ASAP, because not a lot of guys get that opportunity to be on one show and then the other in such a short amount of time. Little Miss Kayla Sparks did it last night, pulled a Rick Rude, was on Rampage and SmackDown. Didn't I tell you that was going to happen? How many weeks ago was it? I did a whole 3-minute bit on that where I'm like, sooner or later, a lot of this independent talent or uncontracted talent they bring in for segments can have an opportunity, if you find yourself in a taped show position, to be on both shows. And Rampage was taped on Wednesday. Kayla Sparks was there, and then I believe she worked last night on SmackDown Live. Is that how it went? Can't remember, but that's how I think it went. So, or she got kissed on the kiss cam last night on SmackDown. So that is kind of cool. Hopefully one day it'll happen with a much bigger talent. But in terms of Cody, what he could be doing, I don't even know what I'd prefer at this point. I think it would be very cool if Cody turned up in WWE, because it would feel very Forbidden Door-ish. It would be crazy for him to turn back up there. We've even ran through some potential opponents for him. I think a great one would be Seth Rollins for WrestleMania, because Seth right now, it doesn't seem like he'd have anything to do unless he gets involved with Owens in an Austin tag match or something. But, I mentioned on Monday that, what if Seth came down to the ring, in a suit, and he's crazy, and he gets on the mic. Can you believe this idiotic company didn't give me a match? I'm the greatest it's ever been, and I don't have a match at WrestleMania. I'm challenging anybody to come down here so I can humiliate them. And then Cody Rhodes comes out to his AEW theme music and gets in the ring and shakes his head and looks at Seth and says, hey, my dad presented you your very first championship here in this company in NXT. He always spoke so highly of you, and it's so disappointing to see what you become. I've been over wrestling somewhere else, watching from afar, and watching this man that my father idolized and was so excited about, and his potential, what he could do for the future of wrestling. And to see what you become now, man, my dad would be spinning in his grave, and I'm here to shut your ass up. So I'll answer your challenge. And then he hits him with a crossroads and wins or whatnot. I don't know. That could be kind of a cool thing for Cody to do. But he could jump back to AEW and shock everybody there and, completely change his persona up, maybe even being a full-blown heel, maybe more of like a corporate WWE guy. Some people have tossed out that possibility. But also, last night it was revealed on SmackDown, or during SmackDown, I should say, and this is bizarre, is that Vince McMahon is going to be mumbling. Vince can't hear the damn word he says. He's going to be on the Pat McAfee show this Thursday. And Pat McAfee, he doesn't pull any punches. He's had some really fun guests recently with Brock Lesnar. He's even talked about the Cody Rhodes situation on his podcast. So a lot of people have pointed out that Vince will likely, be there with, his proxy will be Theory. But so that's either going to set up Vince McMahon or Pat McAfee in a match, or possibly and likely Austin Theory against Pat McAfee, unless they want to do something like bring in Cody Rhodes here to represent Pat. I mean, we did hear that if Cody comes into WWE, they're going to treat him like a big deal. They're going to make him a big deal. And if he's involved right away in a storyline with Vince McMahon, that could potentially be it too. Who knows? I always thought it would be fun to somehow put Pat McAfee and Corey Graves on a collision course. And if Corey, he's cleared to get back in the ring, if he does get back in the ring, that would be fun to see those two go at it, because I am team McAfee. When it comes to McAfee and Corey Graves, it's like McAfee's here and Graves is like way down here by the bottom of the sole of my fucking foot. So, and have you seen that preview for Corey and Carmella? Can't wait to not watch that. Jesus, man. So Vince being on Pat McAfee is interesting. Who knows what he's going to say, but it's probably going to kick off or start whatever angle it is they're looking to accomplish at WrestleMania, and that's going to involve Vince and Austin Theory. So that will probably start on Thursday, and who knows if Cody will factor into that or not. I suppose he could, but you never know. And speaking of Cody and AEW and kind of staying on that subject a little bit, we have Tony Khan hyping another monumental announcement for wrestling this coming Wednesday. Now, he had already teased some announcement that was going to happen this past Wednesday, and we didn't hear anything. I thought it was a good show. I like the MJF and CM Punk stuff a lot. Buddy Matthews debuted, but it was just more of a less crazy Dynamite, maybe slightly underwhelming, and we got no big announcement at all. So I don't even know why he said that. So now he's saying that he's going to have another one. He better deliver. I mean, Tony Khan seems like a guy that just likes to say he's got announcements all the time, and WCW did that a couple times too. They made a big deal about shit that really wasn't. So he is claiming, he was on a couple of podcasts this week, I know Bustin' Open and another one in Florida, where he said this isn't going to be one specific signing, but something that's going to be huge for professional wrestling as a whole. So this could be anything. This could be a working agreement with a company. He could have maybe purchased a company. I don't know what's going on with Ring of Honor or anything, but if he found a way to acquire that and acquire that company, that could be something kind of fun. It might even be a new TV deal. It might be a streaming deal. Maybe they're going to HBO Max or Paramount or something like that for their video library. Maybe they're going to announce a streaming site where you can watch all of AEW's past shows. Who knows what it's going to be? But right now he's hyping it as something pretty big. So we'll find out on Wednesday if the hype matches the actual weight of the announcement. So tune in on Wednesday to find that out. One more piece of fun news to get into before we tackle WrestleMania, and that is our friend Sonny. Tammy Sitch, a.k.a. Sonny, arrested again. I believe this is arrest number 145. She's been arrested that many times, it feels like. And this time, the charges are very similar to what she was arrested for last month. She was arrested in January for a lot of the same shit. She just came out of a pretty lengthy stay in jail after already having kind of a lengthy stay in jail. Every time she's been arrested and released, in jail or released, or in jail and released, she gets in trouble almost immediately upon leaving. So now she's been arrested again for, get this, number one, operating under the influence of liquor or drugs, driving after driver's license registration suspended or revoked, careless driving, likely to endanger person or property, reckless driving, careless and reckless, failure to wear seat equipment, responsibility of driver, driving without a license, failed possession driver's license, failed to possess driver's registration, failing to possess insurance. So no license, no registration, no insurance, wasted, not wearing her seatbelt, and reckless driving. Failure to install interlock drive car without interlock. Okay, so they're probably just piling on the charges there. And operate motor vehicle during license suspension, second violation. So that's a whole violation in and of itself. So she was driving again drunk with no license, no registration, no nothing. She has had multiple DUI arrests. And this is what makes me so angry about the legal system, is that there is no reason why this woman should not be in jail for the rest of her life. Forget the 10-year shit I was talking about. These charges, when you add them to all the other charges, it's insane. She's gotten no help. She's gotten no better. If anything, she's gotten worse. She's had restraining orders put on her. She's mentally unstable. She's got a huge addiction problem, and she's a complete hot mess. And how she has managed to stay alive this long, I don't know. But there doesn't seem to be any rock bottom for her. And we talked about that last time she was arrested. I was careful to, express my dislike for Sonny and how she behaves, but also make it very clear that I'm not trying to have her die. And when you see people that get in this much trouble, how long is it going to take before that car hits a tree or hits another family and kills them, or Sonny dies of an overdose, or she commits suicide or something like this? There doesn't seem to be any possible positive outlook to this. Think about this statement. She's like 10 times worse than China. At least at the end, China tried. She was never able to really beat it, but she felt like there was a couple of times where she was in a good place. Remember, we would see videos of her and like, she seems like she's got it together. I've never felt that way about Sunny. Sunny has always come across like a hot mess, like white trash, like a garbage person, and it's embarrassing. And now she's arrested again. I swear to God, man, if we hear about her getting out of jail again, then now you got to start asking yourself, well, who's really to blame here? Because I firmly believe you chuck somebody in jail for a fucking decade, they should come out and say, okay, I'm going to try to stay out now. I mean, you would think after 10 years, not that you can't get drugs and everything in jail, you can, but you would think 10 years of detox should be enough to maybe shake this demon, but no judge has really thrown her in the slammer for any longer than a year. And I think it needs to be for a long, long time with no possibility of release or parole. Like a minimum of 10 years type of thing. Maybe people think that's even too soft. Maybe people want to go more. But I lost respect for Sunny long ago. It's been 20 years since I had even a shred of respect for her. So none of this is really shocking or new. It's just frustrating because how many more times does this have to happen before an innocent person is hurt or killed? And I feel like we're lucky it hasn't happened already. And by then it's too late. Sunny kills a family of 4 and gets sent away to jail for the rest of her life, fine, but that doesn't bring the 4 people back. Wouldn't it be better served to try to prevent something like this from happening? I don't understand how a judge on a bench, when she comes into the courtroom and he looks at this phone book thick list of charges and arrests that she's had over the last 2 decades and let her walk out of there free. Unbelievable. So we will monitor this and see what happens to Sunny, but I sure as shit don't want to hear any reports of this idiot walking her moronic ass out of jail and back home again, only to get behind the wheel drunk again or to do something else fucking stupid again. Shout out to Salamonster. About 30 minutes after I read the Sunny news, I'm making notes for my podcast and I've got YouTube pulled up and it's like YouTube knew or something. Like I was on a completely different website reading the Sunny news, shaking my head. And then I've got YouTube pulled up and Salamonster's video that he posted on Sunny from last month, from her arrest last month, was just right in front of me. And it was like 3 minutes long or something. And I never heard it before. So I'm like, okay, so I clicked on it. And the very first thing he says, he goes, Sunny has been arrested again, or as she likes to call it, Thursday. And then I look at the date of her arrest here and it says February 24th. And I'm like, well, today's February 26th. Let's take a look at the calendar. Sure enough, February 24th was Thursday. Hilarious. So I had to make sure I tweeted him about that. But it's spooky how your computer just knows what the fuck you're reading. We're all going to die. We're all going to die. So anyway, Sunny, I got nothing else to say about her. She's, what a disgrace. Anywho, let's get into some more fun stuff, shall we? Well, let me do that in just 1 second. Let me cruise over here back to the chat and make sure we are all good. I have a couple super chats I think that I missed. C-Mac, I got yours, but Victor, I did not hit yours earlier on. Thank you for that $5. I'm listening to the stream, pushing carts at work. At least I can listen to the podcast. I'm praying for your cat. Thank you very much, Victor. Good luck out there wherever you live. I hope it's not too chilly or cold while you're pushing them carts. And yeah, my man, he's a fighter. He's a little warrior. He ain't going to make it, but man, he's trying, and he's trying to give me time to process before he leaves me for good. So I'll always remember that, when it's over. I appreciate that, Victor. How wheezy. Good to see you, man. Appreciate the $2. I'm glad you're here. Just happy WWE made a star in Bianca, at least. I am too, and I hope they continue to make her that star at WrestleMania. And a lot of fans are kind of upset about her and Becky's match placement on the card as well, which we are literally about to talk about right now. Meltzer tweeted that on the internal WrestleMania sheet, it's Vince versus McAfee in a match. I just can't see that happening. Now, even if they try to go with it all the way up until WrestleMania and maybe have like Cody come out and replace Vince last minute, that seems to be what they would do if they actually have this thing advertised as Vince and McAfee in a match. Like, I appreciate Vince for wanting to try or something, but come on, man. The dude couldn't work when he was 52. Now he's 75. I don't know how that's even going to look, and I think that Vince will have somebody in his place because why would Vince wrestle when they're working so hard to try to make a star out of Austin Theory? You know, I don't care what Meltzer has on his sheet. You know, Vince Theory should be wrestling in Vince's place in that. And you could, like I said, also factor in Cody if you want. All right, so let me get into a little bit about WrestleMania. Now, we're going to talk about SmackDown in a minute, but we're only going to run through that show. And I want to talk... Well, actually, let's do it this way. I should have thought about this. Let's run through SmackDown real quick, the results, so we can get to that Brock and Roman contract signing, which then segues in to this big, meaty part of the podcast that I want to focus on. So, last night's SmackDown... Well, shit, maybe I'll do one more. No, I was going to take another detour, but we're not. We're going to stick with last night's SmackDown. Rating came in for this. They dipped, actually, just under 2 million, 1.9. SmackDown scored, apparently, last night, according to those early ratings. The show opens up with Ronda Rousey. She's got a promo. Fans don't seem to give a shit this time around. And she was then, of course, confronted by Charlotte after she talks about her pregnancy and wanting to set an example of for her daughter and what exactly her, motivations are this time around. And she wants to beat Charlotte and win the title at WrestleMania. And we're going to talk about the match placement here. It was announced that Charlotte and Ronda will main event night 1 and Brock and Roman will main event night 2. So that means Brock and Ronda are both going to be main eventing nights of WrestleMania. That's interesting, especially with so much talk of unification. But Charlotte comes out, talks smack to Ronda. Sonya Deville then hits the ring from behind, chop blocks Ronda Rousey. Then Charlotte attacks Ronda, starts working over and attacking her leg on the ring post, and basically leaves her laying. Now, it would be announced later on that next week, Sonya Deville will be taking on Ronda Rousey one-on-one. Wow. That's pretty good. Now, we also had what we kind of figured was going to happen involving Sami Zayn. Of course, last week, he finally recaptured his Intercontinental Championship. He had a big celebration last night on SmackDown with the belt and all that. And, of course, he's then interrupted by Johnny Knoxville, who does, in fact, officially challenge Sami Zayn to a match at WrestleMania for the Intercontinental title. And I guess Sami, does he accept or whatever? All I know is Sami Zayn winds up beating the shit out of Johnny Knoxville, as he should have, and hit him with a couple of haluva kicks. One landed okay, and the other one landed flush. So props to Knoxville for taking these bumps. Now he's going to be actually wrestling for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania, and I just don't know what to make about that. I mean, I like Knoxville. I don't even totally hate celebrity involvements in wrestling if they're done right or if they're entertaining. I think Knoxville can be entertaining, but, I can't believe we're going to put the Intercontinental Championship on Johnny Knoxville, Steamboat, Savage, Brett, Perfect, Shawn, Knoxville. Just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? So we have plenty of time to complain about that. But I like Sami and I like Knoxville and I like Sami Zayn a lot. And we've also felt with Sami Zayn, much like we have about Cesaro, that there's been times in his WWE career where he's been underutilized or not used well. This is great for Sami. This gets him an assload of exposure. I'd resign too if I was Sami. WWE's got him in an IC title program against a pretty major celebrity in Johnny Knoxville, and it's going to be taking place at the show of shows. So, at least it's something, at least it's something for Sami, and it's really going to get him a lot of exposure. So for that, I'm happy, and I really, at the end of the day, don't have an issue with the match because the Intercontinental Championship, it's so far gone from that beautiful design on the wall. It's been just fucked with and devalued so badly in the last 25 years. They could put the goddamn thing on a chicken, and I would not care. Fans are like, oh, it's such a disgrace. I'm like, really? Is it, though? Maybe 25 years ago, like if Brett dropped the belt to Johnny Knoxville, then I would say it's a disgrace. But this championship belt now is nothing more than a goddamn prop, and it means dick, and who cares who holds it? It's worthless. And that's WWE's fault for making the title that way. We had Big E and Kofi, third match in February against Los Lotharios, 50-50 booking in this. I think they lost last week, so this week they won. The Lotharios came out with their kiss cam bullshit when they were making their entrance, and they kissed a girl at ringside on the cheek or on the cheeks, and that turned out to be Kayla Sparks, who also wrestled in Serena Deeb's Open Challenge last night on Rampage. So she was actually on both shows in the same night, just like I said would probably happen a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, sooner or later, it's probably going to be a really small, independent, local, or uncontracted talent, but it will happen. You watch. And it did. We had Drew McIntyre taking on Madcap Moss again. They replayed that Saudi Arabia bump about 100 times. Now, Corbin and Madcap attack Drew before the bell, but he recovers, wins the match with a Claymore, and of course, it looks like we're setting up for Drew McIntyre against Baron Corbin at WrestleMania. No fans are interested in that, and I'm not really either. I have thought this entire angle is stupid, but if I take away all the dumb segments, the swords, the idiotic jokes, the dumb hats, and basically all the talking completely, Corbin and McIntyre one-on-one is not a bad match. It's going to be a banger. I know people refuse to accept Corbin as anything decent at all. He makes my balls hurt just as bad as he makes yours. But in the ring, he's incredible. In the ring, he knows what he's doing. In the ring, he's trustworthy and he's safe. He gave Kurt Angle his last match. And I think him and McIntyre can have a really, really surprising match at the show. And I think it's one that can just be real good. Maybe a good opener. It's probably a good, solid opener with McIntyre, of course, winning with the Claymore. But I don't hate Corbin in the ring. I just basically hate how WWE presents him. But in the ring, the dude can go. And if you think he can't, that's your own bias talking. Just watch him. He's good. Sasha Banks defeated Shotzi Blackheart. We had Naomi on commentary for this thing. Now, after Shotzi lost, Naomi joins Sasha in the ring, gets on the mic, and says, "You're looking at the next women's tag team champions." Okay, so Naomi and Sasha, I guess because WWE doesn't have any world title plans for them, at least right now, they're going to team them up? Okay, I thought we were going for Sonya and Naomi at WrestleMania, but now it looks like Sonya has maybe involved herself a little bit in the Ronda and Charlotte stuff. So now they've randomly thrown Sasha and Shotzi together. They've made it known that they're going to go after the tag team title, and this is the best part. So I'm making my notes, and I'm writing down, I'm like, okay, Sasha and Naomi say they're going to be the next tag champs, and then I start to think, who are the women's tag champs? And I shit you not, I couldn't think of it. I had no earthly clue who the women's tag team champions were. I couldn't remember. And I refused to look it up. I mean, my keyboard is right here. Google will answer this question in 1 second for me. And I sat here and I'm like, I have no idea who the tag team champions are. It just wasn't coming to me. And I'm like, think, Greg, what the fuck? Think, you should know this. Couldn't think of it. 10 minutes went by. I gave up and Googled it and realized it was Carmella and Zelina. And then I'm like, oh, yeah. So that shows you how valuable they must be. Don't even remember that they were even champs. So Sasha and Naomi are now going to go after the meaningless, worthless women's tag team championships. Great. Last time Sasha was challenging or involved in the tag team championship situation around WrestleMania time, she walked out. So I don't know what's going on there. It could set up a good opportunity or possibility for Bayley to return, although I got another idea for Bayley later on. Maybe Bayley can come in and, her and Sasha can kind of get back together and get those tag titles back. But we saw that during the pandemic, and we probably don't need to see that again, even though they were magic together. Excellent debut for Xia Li. She was drafted in the draft back in October. They decided to debut her at the end of February. Finally, they remembered. That's nice of WWE. Boy, they're really on the ball, aren't they? But really, really strong debut for her, putting down Maddie pretty good, flattening her with a gnar spinning heel kick, which looked great, and she got the win. And Xia Li, I've mentioned before that I would really like her to be kind of the next Asuka. I would like to see her have that type of dominance and invoke that type of fear in her opponents, because she's awesome. She's fast, and she's got a lot of that, Asuka dynamic to her, to where she's a little bit mysterious, but also really, really tough and kind of scary. So I like that about her. So go Xia Li. I'm going to be a big fan of hers. And of course, we had the Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns contract signing for WrestleMania. This was so good. Oh my God, Brock, this is the best Brock I've ever seen. We're going to talk about who should or should not win that match at WrestleMania here in just a little bit, but I don't want Brock Lesnar to go anywhere. This is the best the most I've enjoyed Brock Lesnar in his entire career, and he was already in my top 10 favorite wrestlers of all time. He was already there 5 years ago, but this new version of him just bumps him up. You know, he bumped up all the way to number 3. You can't get higher than number 3 because in order to be number 1 or 2, your name has to be Brett or Randy. But Brock has been so fantastic, so phenomenal. I never knew he could be this fun, this entertaining. He seems like he's having the time of his life, and he's great. So Roman has hired an entire security team to kind of protect him last night. And once they do the contract deal, Heyman says his piece, Brock and Roman say their piece, and Brock starts going off about how it's his show and he owns everything. I own this camera and I own that ring and I own you and I own these people. And I think he says, and I own them. And then the security staff kind of surrounds Brock, and Brock just takes the table and throws it at about 5 of them, picking up the spare. They all go down, and then he just beats the shit out of the other guys. He's throwing them around like a madman. Brock is legit, even in a professional wrestling, tongue-in-cheek type of environment. He is scary as hell. The way he was just annihilating, destroying that talent was the funniest fucking thing I had ever seen. Roman kind of retreating, to the back, and that I just fucking loved it. I mean, I know a lot of people have their own opinions about this WrestleMania match, and we've seen it too many times, but Brock last night alone sold me on this match, just with the way he was throwing people around, because, they've always done a good job with Brock, despite the fact when he loses a match or he finally puts somebody over, he's still Brock at the end of the day. He's still just as strong, just as scary, just as credible and believable as he was before Drew McIntyre eliminated him from the Royal Rumble and claymored him at WrestleMania to win the title. He's back stronger than ever in my mind. And I'm even wondering if prior to now in WrestleMania, they might, have Brock and McIntyre interact, or maybe after WrestleMania, depending on who wins. Because Brock, he was able to eliminate Seth from the chamber. I feel like he's got to get a pin on McIntyre somewhere too. We'll see how that goes. But I think overall, the match at WrestleMania is the right match to do for one reason. It's the 2 strongest people you have in your company. You can argue all day, and I ain't going to disagree with how they got to this point, but they're still at this point. And at least it's not a rematch of WrestleMania 34. At least it's not a rematch of WrestleMania 31. Those matches had different feels and different vibes. The first one was all about Roman coming up and Seth spoiling the party. The next one was all about Roman coming up again. This time Brock spoiled the party, and Brock has always really owned Roman Reigns throughout this whole thing until Roman scored that weird-ass victory over him at SummerSlam and that 4-way and finally won the title, and then got one over on him in Saudi Arabia. But they were supposed to do it again at day 1. I have no idea. You guys can let me know in the chat. Do you think if that match would have gone the way they planned it at day 1 and it actually happened, would we also be doing Roman and Brock at WrestleMania? Or do you think day 1 changed everything? I kind of think we were getting Brock and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania anyway. I think maybe the plan was to have these run-ins with each other where shady shit went down, and then at the end of it, both guys wind up with championship belts, and you just unify, winner-take-all, ultimate blow-off. That's the way I'm looking at it. I'll be the first one to admit I don't want any more Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns matches. Certainly not. I hope that WrestleMania is the last one, or at least the last one for a long time until maybe they come back together for a retirement deal or something like that. But I hope in terms of their 5, 6, 7 year long saga now, this puts a nice bow on it. And, it makes and solidifies a megastar that you really already have. To me, in my mind, fans can disagree. I don't give a shit. In my mind, Roman has to win here. In my mind, Roman has to put down Brock. Even though he's my 3rd favorite wrestler of all time, I think for Roman to make that statement win over Brock, because Brock's already gotten some of these statement wins over Roman. I talked about it back in 34. I couldn't believe how mad fans were because he kicked out of too many F5s. I mean, he was still left laying in a pool of blood and piss, and fans are still mad. So I feel like Roman, the way his character has developed, changed, evolved, and who he is now, he's second best to no one. He doesn't have to be intimidated or be an underdog to anyone. I think WWE has tried to make Brock and Roman as equally strong as possible to where when they collide, it should be fucking epic, and it should be a lot better than what they've done in the past. And I think personally, because I've seen this happen before already, because I'm old and I've seen the way people's opinions of matches change over time. I mentioned this to Sean Ross Sapp last night on Twitter. I said, I'm not arguing anything about how WWE got to this point, how they sacrificed talent to make Brock, how we just buried everybody. A couple of years ago during Great Balls of Fire, I predicted Samoa Joe to beat him. I thought it was time to use Brock to make another monster. And time again, they let us down and they let us down. So I will never debate that. That wasn't the debate. You know, what I was saying is the fact that you have this match now that is different than it was before, and it is your two strongest guys. And even though WWE's done a lot of stupid shit to get to this point and sacrificed a lot of their own business and talent to get there, at least we have this. And at least it's not a complete carbon copy of what we've seen before, which is what I've tried to preach time and time again, because all I ever see is, we've seen it before. We've seen it before. And that's where I made the mistake of last night tweeting out something about WrestleMania rematches, because I watched them all. I'm older than you, or most people than you, and I've seen them all. And there were so many WrestleMania main events that were rematches. And I listed them: WrestleMania 2, WrestleMania 3, 4, 5, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 24, 26, 27, 29, 34, and probably one or two that I was missing were all rematches. Now, the mistake I made was use the word rematch, because this turned into a debate of what defines the word rematch. In my head, I was using rematch in a casual sense, saying rematch means it happened before. But people thought I meant it was a WrestleMania rematch. I'm like, that didn't happen. WrestleMania. When did Bundy and Hogan wrestle? I'm like, Bundy and Hogan wrestled a lot of times before WrestleMania 2. As a matter of fact, that cage match was set up because of a previous match they had. Randy Savage and Ted DiBiase, the main event of WrestleMania 4, worked 2 weeks earlier on Saturday night's main event. Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant worked countless times. Hogan body slammed Andre the Giant before. Nobody talked about it, but it still happened. WrestleMania 5, Hogan and Savage worked a bunch when Savage was IC champion. You know? What is the other one? WrestleMania 12, Bret and Shawn. Look at the history they had with each other. 13, Taker and Sid. 14, Shawn and Austin. Shawn and Austin worked King of the Ring the year before their WrestleMania main event. So basically what I was trying to point out is that many WrestleMania main events are matches we've seen. But because I made the mistake of using the word rematch, people got all up and bothered about it. And a lot of people were pointing out the mistakes made by WWE. And I'm like, whoa. That's what I was trying to tell Sean, because he brought up some good points about WWE sacrificing their talent. I'm like, that wasn't what the tweet was about. I can certainly agree with WWE stupidity. I don't want any fan ever to think that I'm sitting here thinking WWE's not a bunch of idiots. I completely understand the clown show that company is. Do not get me wrong. But I think it's okay to not hate something they throw at me every now and then. And even though I understand the problems that they've done with the booking with Roman and Brock, even though I love the Roman and Brock characters, they sacrificed a lot to get to this point, and you could argue that it wasn't worth it. Sure, I'll take that argument. Again, not what the tweet was about. My point was, at least this is a main event that, even though we've seen it a bunch of times, to me has intrigue. You wouldn't believe how many smug little fucking pieces of shit. No one wants to see that match. No one wants to see that match. I'm like, who's no one? I'm not no one. I'm not no one. I got more followers than you, bitch. I want to see it, so you're wrong. You know, that attitude that what you want or what you like is what everybody should like is one of the biggest problems in the fucking world. I got jackasses talking to me about the media and morality plays and everything. I made the comparison to Roman and Brock to Austin and Rock. I said, look at Austin and Rock. Look at all the WrestleMania matches they worked. You know, look at their story and their rivalry. You know, they're not telling any different of a story than Brock and Roman are. They're the two top guys in the company. Naturally, their paths are going to parallel. They're going to be natural rivals. And you saw a lot of different stories being told with Rock and Austin. We saw role reversals. We saw heel turns as an ambulance goes by. We saw essentially all the same shit in Rock and Austin that we're seeing now with Brock and Roman. Maybe with Heyman playing more of the Vince McMahon role. But even back then, with Austin and Rock, it was even more jumbled up. The story was even more of a mess. Look at what they did during the invasion. By the time, Rock was such a dirty heel to Austin, then you fast forward to Survivor Series 2001, and The Rock is beating Austin in that 5-on-5 match as a babyface. So it was all over the place. There was no real strong story there. So when everybody's like, what's the story they're telling? I'm like, it's not that. You don't have to overthink it. It ain't that deep. The story is the two biggest badasses in the WWE are jockeying to be the number one guy. That's the story. What the fuck are you looking for? I don't understand why wrestling fans try to over-intellectualize something that's so goddamn simple and so easy to understand if you just watch it and appreciate it for wrestling. So yes, WWE are morons. Yes, they have completely sabotaged their own damn product and sacrificed a lot of good talent in order to make Roman and especially Brock as strong as they are. But it could be a lot worse. They could go through all that trouble, sacrifice all that talent to have two completely bland, unchanging characters that are the exact same as they were in 2015, and they're throwing this shit at us again in the main event of WrestleMania. I will take this over Roman and Brock at 34, over Roman and Triple H at 32, over a lot of WrestleMania main events in recent history, because this one is going to be good. And now, because of the path both of these guys are on, it's been announced, since they're both champions, this is going to be the ultimate blow-off. This, to me, even though we've had a ton of Brock Lesnar matches, I feel like there's loose ends. Fans are willing. Fans claim they want long-term booking, or they claim they want continuity, or they claim they want things followed through with. And we have a whole bunch of loose ends to tie up with Roman and Brock still. There's been some shady shit that's gone down in their last couple of encounters. They are two very different people. Brock is just, of course, Brock, and Roman has got a 500-day plus run now with the championship. Now it's going to be a winner-take-all deal. This is it. This is the final match we need. We actually need this for closure. But fans just hate it because it's WrestleMania. So I'm like, there's 2 nights of WrestleMania, man. I just don't, after this, don't get me wrong, I really hope they move on from this. But imagine the level of star that's going to make Roman if he puts down Brock clean and hard in the middle of the ring. I mentioned that the same day Roman re-debuted as a heel and came back at SummerSlam a couple years ago. I said the very first thing he needs to do is to put down Brock and get that monkey off his back, because even though he technically owns a victory over Brock, it's not like the same type of victory that Brock has over Roman. Roman needs to achieve that in order to solidify his legacy and what he's going to mean to the company. And that's why I think that's really important. I really hope they don't do some weird-ass ending at WrestleMania where it leaves the door open to a rematch. Now, if they have a match again immediately after WrestleMania, or they run it back again at SummerSlam, then I will be much more understanding of these complaints. But in terms of this particular match, I don't see the problem. This is, of all the matches they can make in terms of where everybody is right now on the roster, this is pretty much the best one I can think of. Roman and Brock, title for title. So the biggest thing here is now we have to think about the unification, the fact that this is going to be a unification match now. And essentially, you would think the brand split is going to end. I still have no idea how this is going to work. I also don't even trust WWE to tell us that it's a unification. They might just have one guy win both belts and then take one off of them and have a tournament or recrown another champion. But if this does in fact turn out to be a unification, which all signs indicate that it is, I am 1,000% on board with this. I have never liked the idea of 2 world titles. I think I was willing to give it a chance in 2016 when they unveiled the Universal title, but it seems like it's been a disaster ever since. And having the 2 world championships, especially now, when you think about what happened after the pandemic and all of the wrestlers that WWE released, it almost feels like they have reverted back to about the size of the roster that they might have had during the Attitude Era or the Ruthless Aggression Era. An Attitude Era especially, back then you only had 1 champion. The 2 champions thing didn't come until WCW was bought out. But you really don't need 2 champions anymore. And you also have USA and Fox both paying WWE $1 billion. Both might not like having the B champion on their show, which WWE never designates a specific title to be the B title, but they always designate a specific champion to be the B champion. Case in point with Big E and Roman last year. You know, Big E was the B champion, even though he was the WWE champion. So I don't think it's necessary to have 2 world champions if one of them is going to be a B champion, because you know what the B champion is? The fucking Intercontinental Champion is what he should have been. So maybe there's some optimism here. Maybe if they unify the titles, we actually now as fans have a chance to see the Intercontinental title. I really wish it was that one and not that ugly piece of shit Sammy has. And I know this is going to sound like a crazy sentence considering Johnny Knoxville's about to fucking challenge for this thing, but there might be a chance to where the Intercontinental and U.S. titles can get re-elevated again. You see what AEW does, having those like banger main event TNT title matches. Last night, I think the Sammy Andrade one opened the show. Fine. But many of those are the main events. And a lot of times that is the best match of the night, best match of the week, the month. We're still talking about that Cody and Sammy ladder match, and Cody's not even the damn company anymore. So I would like to see WWE do that. Imagine if they were able to make the IC in the US basically the top belts on their respective brands, and then the world champion floats. You know, it's not a bad idea. I don't trust WWE to properly do it, of course. I don't trust WWE to properly wipe their ass. But in theory, it could be done, and in theory, it could be really good. I would love to see the Intercontinental title rise back to greatness. Hell, even this Johnny Knoxville storyline could be used as a catalyst to do that, especially if he beats Sammy. You know, then they get the belt off of Knoxville somehow, and whoever beats him is like, I want to restore her prestige to this title, maybe even re-debuting an old classic design. Cody could be a good guy for that. What if Knoxville beats Sammy at WrestleMania for the Intercontinental title, and then Cody shows up and says, no, this is a disgrace. I challenge you right now to a championship match. And then he hits Knoxville with 13 crossroads and beats him. And then he's got a sack with him, and he pulls out of the sack the old classic IC championship belt that he wore that unfortunately had the white strap. I'm a black strap guy, but hey, white strap classic IC is a hell of a lot better than that fucking cheeseburger of a championship they have now. So there is a chance and a possibility with the unification that those championships could be elevated, and that's what they need to do. Seems simple to us, right? Make the IC title important again. I miss those days. And you have to wonder, if you're going to unify the men's, like I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, if you're going to unify the men's, what the hell are you going to do with the women's? How are you going to unify the men's at WrestleMania, but not the women's? Does anybody find that weird? That's why I question if this is a real unification or not, or if WWE's still fucking with us and they still plan to have both belts after this pay-per-view. But if they unify the men's, logic would tell you that they are going to unify the women's as well. And you know where I think a great night to do that would be? Is either at WrestleMania itself in some sort of surprise challenge. What if Ronda beats Charlotte on night one, wins the championship? And then maybe after Becky and Bianca, Ronda shows up and challenges the winner to unify the belts on the undercard. Or you could save it for the next night after WrestleMania on Raw. Maybe you have the two champions in the ring and Sonya and Adam make a unification match for the main event of Raw that night. Or maybe they make a fatal four-way. Or maybe a fatal five-way. It's Becky, Charlotte, Bianca, and Ronda, and a mystery opponent. And you do that match in the main event, and the mystery opponent is Bayley. And she wins, shocks the world, unifies the title, and Becky, Ronda, Bianca, and Charlotte all stand there dumbfounded. Or you could have the championship match take place. Let's say it's Bianca if she beats Becky, which we hope it will be. And I don't know who's going to win between Charlotte and Ronda. I mean, if Ronda's only going to be around for another year, I kind of feel like Charlotte should win. And that's going to be really interesting for the fans as well, because I was at Survivor Series in 2018 when they wrestled, and that was a great match. But it was funny to see the fans kind of turn on themselves. Like they didn't know, they're so angry all the time, they don't know what they want. And then they get confused mid-match and start cheering for the wrong person. That's what happened at Survivor Series. So they're probably going to confuse themselves again. And I don't know, seems like fans hate Charlotte and they hate Ronda. So trying to listen to them figure out who they want to win is fucking hilarious. So if Charlotte is to win, and then she confronts Bianca, Adam and Sonya make Charlotte and Bianca in the main event of Raw that night. to unify the championships, and Bianca wins. Anybody could win. Doesn't matter who wins, I guess. But then maybe as the winner is celebrating is the new unified women's champion, Bayley's music hits. She comes to the ring because don't forget about SmackDown. Not everything can happen on Raw. Fox has got to get some good shit too. So maybe Bayley comes down to the ring and says, hey, I challenge you for your championship belts this Friday on SmackDown. And then you do a match with Bayley. There's lots of ways night after Mania to get Bayley in there if you want. And another big question is that if we are going to get a unification of the men's and the women's, do we get new championship belts? It's been a pretty big topic of conversation all week on Twitter, and I hate to be so negative about it, but I don't care. One thing is for sure, those belts are going to be butt fuck McNugget fart cheese ugly, 100%, because they are never going to do anything cool, like give us the big gold. So many questions about that. Do you think they're going to bring back the big gold? Do you think they're going to bring back the winged eagle? No, they would never do that. Because it makes sense and we would love it, so naturally they're not going to do it. But I don't think we're ever going to see a championship belt in the WWE again that doesn't have that big, ugly-ass fucking W on it. Maybe they could get away with it before when they were the only company, but now even more than ever, with AEW around, they're going to want to set themselves apart. Because when you see those sports celebrations, those Super Bowl trophy presentations, the NBA Finals, what do you see? WWE Championship belts, that big, disgusting fucking logo smeared across your TV screen. That is never going to change. And if WWE does change it, I would be supremely surprised. So if they do give us new titles, fine, but whatever those new titles are is just going to be a big-ass ugly W. And that's all. It's going to be that big WWE logo. That's all. That's what they're going to give us. That's what they care about. They want their brand. That's what sells the tickets these days. Fans aren't buying tickets to go watch one star. They're going to watch the WWE. They're the Ice Capades. So I'm not even interested in new belts because I know they're going to be ugly and I know they're not going to matter in WWE. Think about how great Roman Reigns would look with the Winged Eagle title. They did the photo shoots a few years back where they had the talent posing with classic championships. Roman looked so goddamn good with that Winged Eagle title, but we're never going to see that again because the WWE logo is this fucking big on it. It's got to be huge, ugly, in your face. That's what WWE is all about. And if they make new championship belts, I'm going to hate them. I'm already going to tell you that. There's no way I'm going to like them. But, if they somehow found a way to put a big WWE logo on the big gold belt, might be fun to have history there. But I don't think, WWE, I think another good reason for them unifying the championships is so they can have a championship that dates back so far the way it does. I mean, AEW is a 2-year-old title. WWE is going to have traces going all the way back to, 1962 or whatever fucking year they crowned Buddy Rogers. So it's going to have a long history, kind of like the NWA title kind of has traces all the way back to, 1908 or whatever it was. So I think it would be good for wrestling history to have the original WWE championship fully intact without any other, outside. It's been melded and absorbed so many championships over the years, but it still is technically the WWE championship. So I'm on board with that. Get rid of the Universal title. It's meaningless. If you have one company, I think you should have one champion. And now that the roster is thinned out, you've let so many go, you're not in talent hoarding mode anymore. There's really no reason to have 35 fucking champions in your company. Simplify shit. Have one men's champion, one women's champion. You got 2 men's underneath their singles titles right now. I think you need to add a women's. Maybe a women's intercontinental. I think if you made a women's intercontinental title, again, it's got to have the big ass logo on it. But if you made a women's intercontinental title that was kind of like a smaller feminine version of the classic, I'd be into that. That belt would look great around anybody. I like the look of the TNT title or the TBS title. I think it looks great on Jade. I think it will look great on a lot of girls when they win it because it's blue and it's pretty. Do something like that with a women's intercontinental title, and you might be onto something in WWE. So there is a chance that after WrestleMania, we are ushering in a brand new era of how WWE produces and presents TV. And a lot of people worry about ending the brand split because that's going to end opportunities for a lot of guys. What guys? I don't need to see guys just coming out and doing meaningless segments. I don't need that. You know, I mean, if you're going to use somebody, use a young talent, make a new star, by all means do it. But I do not need to see the Viking Raiders and Los Lotharios making milkshakes backstage. Don't give a fuck. Leave that shit out of there and just give me wrestling. So if you eliminate the brand split completely, you know, yeah, that might affect that a little bit. Or, you know, you can still have Raw angles and SmackDown angles. There is a way to do that as well, you know, to where like back in the Attitude Era, the angles would, you know, spread across. You know, Austin would be going at it with whoever he's feuding with on Raw and SmackDown, where now you could probably have Raw and SmackDown feuds that just take place on those shows and don't really cross over or tread into any other buddy's territory. And if you made the IC title the number one on SmackDown, the US the number one on Raw, and you have the world champion float between trading, they tried to do this when the brand extension first started with Hogan, with Flair and Vince. Remember, you know, the champion could go back and forth. That didn't really work out well. Maybe they could do a better job with it now, but I think if the champion is evenly distributed between both shows, then the networks really shouldn't have any reason to get pissed. You got one champion, you got two shows on two different networks. He can't be everywhere at the same time. There's going to be plenty of weeks where he can be on both shows, but there's going to be some weeks when he can't, especially if he starts a program with somebody exclusively on SmackDown. There's no real reason for him to go to Raw. So I think if they suck at planning, but if they can think ahead with this a little bit, they might be able to make this work. But I don't have my hopes up, and I sure as hell ain't holding my breath. So let me know what you think about the unification stuff. What do you think about the match placement at WrestleMania? What do you think is going to happen? Who do you think is going to win between Brock and Roman Reigns? And then once those titles are in fact unified, what do they do with the women? Do we get new championship belts? All of that we just discussed. Let me know what you think on that. Let me cruise over here to the chat before I wrap up Rampage, and then I got to get up out of here because I got work to do and stuff. Let's see. A few super chats to answer. Let me go all the way up to Victor Colon, who is in with another one. Yeah, you were the last one there that I missed. People complaining about Johnny, at least it's not WCW. Well, yeah, WCW ruins everything, right? Divine Ricks, thank you for the 5 from you. Hey, Greg, are you planning on going to AEW Double or Nothing in Vegas this year? Yes, tickets are on sale in just a few days. I will plan on being there. At least that's the plan right now. So I will let you guys know on that. Finally got an on sale ticket date for that, which I think is March 5th, I believe. So fun. Oh, 10 more from you, Divine. Thank you for the $9.99. We had a Taker versus Triple H 3 times at WrestleMania, and we had Austin and Rock 3 times at WrestleMania. I don't see nothing wrong with Brock versus Roman for the third time at Mania. I'm actually looking forward to it. Yeah, fans were really changing what they were getting mad about. And at first it was like they were mad that they faced too many times. Then they were mad that it was too many main events. It's just, I get that you're mad about it, but, you know, it's okay. Like, you know, it's not the end of the world for me to not hate a match that you hate. Like, I don't understand like why that's such a big problem for everyone. You know, boy, who can concentrate on a war when Greg's out here saying he doesn't hate Brock and Roman? Oh my God. So yeah, I mean, we've seen multiple rematches across WrestleMania. Most of the time this doesn't bother me, even if it is the main event. Now we have 2 WrestleManias. You got 2 main events now. So it's not like it's taking up spots or whatever. It probably is. When you look at the current roster in WWE, honestly, that really is the best match to do. You know, but fans cannot let go of that it's happened before thing. And they've got a stick jammed up their ass about it. I'm like, man, we've been through this before. It ain't that weird or unheard of. Just read history. Spaz Phoenix, good to see you, man. Appreciate that 10. Go subscribe to Spaz's YouTube channel. Hey, Greg and chat, have a look at the cards for AEW and Impact Sacrifice. Next weekend is going to be insane. I'll have previews going up for both, so stay tuned. When's Sacrifice? Is that Saturday? Might have to think about my podcast schedule for next week. We'll have to come up here and do AEW Revolution predictions, and then I'll be up here for a Revolution review Sunday night. Have to figure out Sacrifice and when a good day to maybe do some podcasting is. But yeah, head over to Spaz's channel, hit him with a subscription, and you can hit me with a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Let me see, where are we at? Was that the last one? Okay, yeah, we're good on the super chats there. I need to roll through Rampage real quick because last night's show was pretty good. A couple of good moments on the show. Number one, Sammy Guevara defeating Andrade clean to retain the TNT title. Many people took exception to that. They said that maybe Andrade shouldn't be losing clean. I suppose. But I am very much Team Sammy. I think he's doing an excellent job. So I wasn't that upset about it. But yeah, I was also hoping that Andrade would maybe be a little bit stronger positioned in the company than what he is. We had a QT Marshall promo on Hook where he like ran away like a little bitch. We had a Dan Lambert promo where he's promising Scorpio Sky a shot at the TNT Championship before whoever the winner of the Face of Revolution ladder match gets one, because the winner of that will apparently get a TNT title shot. Lambert has promised his guy Scorpio that he's going to get a shot before that, which he will lose. Wardlow defeated Nick Camarado with 3 or 4 power bombs, so Wardlow looks awesome. I love some of the ideas fans were throwing at me about MJF and CM Punk, the way MJF. It was so funny all week long. I've been seeing on Twitter how many people are like smugly, boy, MJF he's working you, you know? And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I'm pretty sure that most fans probably understand there's a good chance MJF is fucking with us. We don't need it pointed out to us. We can hear, see, read. At least I can. So thanks, genius, for pointing out the fucking obvious, but I got it. I got this. Don't need your help. So MJF, you know, of course, is doing something funny. He's taking the storyline turn with CM Punk in a very strange direction this past week on Dynamite, maybe even trying to get some sympathy for the MJF character. I was not believing it for a second, but apparently some of this is real life stuff that they're using in this angle, and CM Punk even came out and said, is that true? MJF was crying, walked away, and I'm like, this guy is either completely full of shit. That's the promo of a lifetime, by the way. You know, because I never believed swerves. Like, Mark Henry never had me fooled for a minute. I never once believed his retirement because John Cena was out there. John Cena would have no business being out there if he was really retiring. So it was obvious to me, you know, so this is another one of those things to where, you know, the MJF character, this is right up his alley. But, you know, AEW also does stuff differently. And if they want to take the storyline in a direction that fans aren't seeing coming, that we're not programmed to already think is the way it's going to go, you know, and maybe even be, you know, in a sense formulaic when it comes to rivalries like this. They sometimes do tend to follow the same general path. So for them to make a hard right turn here is like, whoa, didn't see that coming. So, you know, they could be pulling off, like I said, MJF could either be full of shit or AEW could potentially be pulling off the double turn of all double turns. Could you imagine if we come out on the other side of AEW Revolution and we've got a babyface MJF and a heel CM Punk? And shout out to, is it Max, I think. Was it Max? Max Cond? He had gave me an idea on Twitter the other day. He's like, what if Wardlow turns? Because we've been expecting Wardlow to turn on MJF because of how MJF is mistreating him and kind of has him held hostage with that contract. But what if they double swerved you and instead of Wardlow turning on MJF and becoming a babyface, Wardlow turns on MJF and becomes a heel and is now the bodyguard for CM Punk? CM Punk was rumored to have a Shield 10 years ago in WWE, so why not a one-man Shield and have Wardlow jump with Punk, and the whole thing could be great. I don't know where they're going with it. The fact that they've now thrown us off the trail, to me, is what can make AEW so great. Plus, you got a lot of CM Punk's probably creative input on this, and I think it has a potential, even though it got a slow start, to now potentially be feud of the year. So we're going to really keep our eye on that with Wardlow, MJF, Punk. All that shit that went down on Dynamite was really interesting on Wednesday. I can't wait to see where it goes. Kayla Sparks, double duty. First, she was on SmackDown being kissed by Los Lotharios, and now she's in the ring getting her ass whipped by Serena Deeb. Little Kayla is the closest thing to a Rick Rude we've had in 25 years. So very cool that she was able to be on both shows on the same night. I liked it. Serena Deeb put her away in, maybe 3-ish minutes. And again, I think this rookie challenge is going to set up somebody coming in to the company. Hopefully she does one of these at Revolution. Hopefully it's not even announced. She just comes out to the ring on the mic and says, I want to do my rookie challenge. And then out comes Ember Moon or somebody like that. I think that would be fun. Orange Cassidy defeated Anthony Bowens in a pretty fun match to also qualify for the ladder match. So I'll tell you, man, Keith Lee and who is it? Hobbs. Keith Lee and Will Hobbs, they're in some trouble, man, if they get in Orange Cassidy's face. He's going to fuck them up. We saw a Danhausen appearance in this match. He cursed Bowens and the entire Acclaimed, really. Anthony finds himself back in the ring and gets an orange punch for the win. So once Danhausen was able to kind of get rid of Max Caster, Cassidy wrapped up the match in the ring. And then we finished with the Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa contract signing, which I just thought was great. Britt Baker is fantastic. If Brock and Roman had not done such a great job, especially Brock in that contract signing on SmackDown, I would have really praised probably Britt even more and talked about the match they had last time, how Thunder Rosa technically won, but at the end of it, everybody talked about Baker. She got the t-shirt, she got the action figure, she got the notoriety, she got the title shot, and now she's champion. So what does that say about Thunder Rosa? You know, that even when you win, nobody's thinking about you. Great shit. Rosa gets pissed, attacks Britt Baker over the table. Jamie Hayter shows up to help out Baker, but then Mercedes Martinez shows up and takes out Rebel and Jamie Hayter and basically kind of has like a little stare down with Thunder Rosa and basically saves her. So Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker coming up at Revolution as well. That's going to be fun. Rampage was a fun little action-packed hour of wrestling last night. I liked it a lot, and I'm really looking forward to Revolution 1 week from tomorrow. You know, other than that, not much to talk about in terms of Monday Night Raw other than Kevin Owens still teasing Austin by shitting on Texas every chance he gets. Incidentally, Raw's rating was not too bad, 1.83 and a 0.51 share this week, which was pretty good for them. And Dynamite did bump back over 1 million with a 0.40 share in the demo. So they were up a bit from the 800+ thousand they had the week before. So yeah, ratings fluctuate. That's the way it goes. I wish I could hang out and talk to you guys more, but unfortunately, I have got to go to work. Like I said, no video tomorrow. Possibly we will get... Actually, you'll probably get some mic drops tomorrow for sure, because I've got like 5 in the can I want to release. Probably get some of those tomorrow. And on Monday, up in the air on the Raw review, I'm probably going to say probably not, but I might be here. You never know. Make sure you subscribe. And then after that, my next planned video will be Wednesday for the watch along, and then at some point I'll have to get up here for predictions, and that will probably be Friday maybe of next week. I might come up and do Revolution's predictions. Normally I would know all of this information if I wasn't dealing with a very fluid situation, but things are constantly changing around here for the next couple of weeks until that stabilizes. It might just be a little off on the video schedule, so please make sure you subscribe to me. Thumbs up button. Follow me over on Twitter at GoodMikeWork, and I appreciate all you guys being here with me today. So I got to bounce. You guys take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. If you would like to discuss wrestling with me some more, Twitter is the place for that. You guys take care, and I'll catch you in just a couple of days.